Road boy bass, mash up the place. And fuck you.
I'll call my mom back, but I'm gonna explain this game. Okay, so this game was quality and I won, so I'm going to review this game pretty much move by move. I had the black pieces. First, before we get to that, 72% accuracy and 85% accuracy. So just to note that, I guess, suppose I set the search settings wider. 4 and 10 here is good. And alright, here we go. Petrov defense. Now, sometimes in Blitz you can sneak in this move C5 without your opponent taking advantage of the fact that it is indeed, I don't know if it's a mistake, it might be an inaccuracy. Let's say it's a mistake, and you can slip that in there, and then play knight to C6 to have an improved version of black's side of the 4 knights. Bishop E7 is solid and passive, but also direct against knight G5. That black can simply castle kingside and be out of early, out of attack or out of view of any early attempts on F7. So my opponent played correctly. Knight takes E5, which is why the computer wants bishop to D6. Protect the pawn. Maybe drop the bishop back later. We're still okay to castle in time to avoid serious attacks against F7. Note that white can still trade bishop and knight for rook and pawn, but black isn't worried about that. Here, I thought I saw the tactic as it unfolded in the game. I see here that Torch has other things in mind. To play D6, kick the knight back from whence thou came. Instead I played knight takes E4, thinking that after knight takes E4, the move pawn to D5 would regain the lost piece. I suppose it does, and that white does not have to capture back on E4. We see maybe knight takes F7, and then if rook takes F7, bishop takes F7, king takes F7, queen to F3 check, and then pick up the knight afterward, and white will be doing quite well. Instead, the more natural and more direct looking move, knight takes E4, and I played pawn to D5, presenting white with this fork, mostly to recapture lost material, but my opponent throws knight to F7 in there, which only makes the position worse for white. And now black has the slimmest of material leads 1 point, but a good amount of mobility. Not all these pieces are developed, but many of the pieces that aren't developed have a very strong amount of mobility to them anyway, and that's That's like 90% of why we develop anyway. So this is looking good for black in terms of kingside attack. Or if the opportunity presents itself, pick up a vulnerable piece. This piece, for instance, on e4 is unguarded. Rather than try sort of a willy-nilly attack against the bishop on e4, I could try to scoot my rook to f4. Better off develop some of these pieces, even if they were doing okay on the back rank. This knight is screaming to be let into the game, so knight to c6 was called for and played. Queen to h5, Torch likes as an excellent move. Threatening checkmate on h7. It's easily met by pawn to g6, and now black has seized the initiative. Queen to h6, and this is around the time my mom called, but you trust me, she didn't give me any kind of advice. Queen to h6, then bishop to g5, and white's queen is trapped. At every move, there's a piece to stymie her escape. Right? Queen is completely trapped after bishop to g5. So my opponent makes this move, probably makes most out of a bad situation. Move the d pawn so that it's protecting the bishop on e4 and exposing after the obvious bishop takes h6, then white captures the bishop and is just left with a very inferior game based on a deficiency of material. Here as black, I'm mostly trying to just even further my material advantage. And that comes to a halt with the move rook to d2, so queen f6. We're going to try to pile on the f2 square. Knight's there in 2 hops. Most likely e5 and then g4. And then we place our second rook on f8 and have this triple. And it seems bad that the queen's leading and there is protection, right? Normally you want the queen lead when it's just the king protecting a piece. But when the queen is in lead and there's a lot of protection on the target area, yes, that's true. And on the other hand, if my knight had gotten to g4, then there's moves like the knight can initiate the attack by knight takes f2. The knight can initiate the attack by knight takes e3, and upon recaptures, then we have 3 major pieces strong at that point against f1. So white has to be able to white must at least respect that there could be a strong attack in the near future. And not only this, but black's up a queen. So trying to trade material, I moved to d8, and I got a rook trade, simplifying things, and probably most of these moves are going to be simplifying, increasing my material lead, straightforward piece-for-piece trades, and just in general moves to secure the win. Here we find that after white moves away from losing the exchange, he's going to lose a fair trade, knight for bishop on e3 anyway. Now here, yeah, so in this position I want to show you something. I should have captured on e3. It's called showing the winning idea. My opponent's playing on, we can interpret my opponent's playing on as being mostly challenging me to show the winning idea. What is the winning idea in this situation? The winning idea is the queen. I've got a queen, you don't, have an extra pawn, and there aren't that many pieces on the board. So the winning idea is the queen. So as black, if my opponent's going to challenge me to show the winning idea, I probably would have played queen takes e3, and with you know, time ticking, as long as I have enough time on my clock, I have about 30 seconds on my clock, the king can't move past this barricade, or this blockade, really, on the f file. So just pick a pawn and start marching him forward, and it's going to be promotion on most likely a1 or b1, and that's it. So the whole point being that, you know, when it's a done deal, and I did this wrong myself, so I still know that technically I should have captured on e3. So we're going to capture on e3 and show that version of this. You have to be aware, when is the pawn going to be able to attack your holding rook. So put the rook here, and when the pawn advances, we'll just sort of deal with this sideshow. Even though my Silicon opponent didn't play pawn to e8 equals queen check, I'll still capture the pawn and deal with other nuisances as they arrive. And finally, it's back to promoting to queen, cutting off along this horizontal, or cutting off my opponent's king along this horizontal is good. You could probably you could either check here and then bring the rook back. For reasons I'm not sure why, I would most likely prefer rook to b5 first. He'll do something, okay? He did that something with the king. Human players might try to goof around with your mouse, with the control of your mouse by playing h takes g6 here. It doesn't matter whether you capture back or not. You have enough time to deliver checkmate with rook and queen on the light squares. Just play that out, right? That's how the game might have played out. So back to the original game. I didn't play queen takes e3. It was the better move, but I played queen c5, which isn't all that bad either. And after h4, I played a5. And what the main thing the main reason why queen takes e3 was so important was clock. I have almost no time on my clock. I can't be fooling around with the best response to rook to e8 check. That's not the thing for me. So I guess we get another opportunity to capture the rook, like here with queen takes f2, rook takes f2 check. I'm sorry. Queen takes f2 check, rook takes f2, rook takes f2 check. The king challenges, we run away, and far, because the king's going to be challenging along the d file. We have to be sure that we promote with plenty of tempi on the chessboard, with enough initiative on the chessboard, as well as with enough time on our clock. I resigned here, so we'll play this out just to the very bitter end, as part of how I like to analyze chess games. Alright. Fun game, a great game, a winning game. I'll close some of these practice windows. Alright, I'll be signing off in a minute or two. Take a look at the game history. 4 games. This game was very accurate when played to checkmate in either rendition. I believe this was the game. Yeah, this was the game just continued. I think it's the same. These are pretty much the same. 41. Okay, well, anyway, accurate games, strong games. My opponent finally succumbed, I guess you could say. See, he won the first two, and I won the third. I thought that they were good games. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you, Gravitrons. I'm More Gravity. Have a great night. Signing off.